Family mode.
Hello and welcome everybody. Happy Friday to you. Going to go ahead and get kicked off here in just a second with our first all-office conference call leading up to the 2020 calendar year, tax year 2019 filing season. Looks like we got a pretty darn good group already logged in. I see a few still kind of getting in there as we speak. So um, before we get going, I want to say thanks for showing up here. Middle of the day. I know that's tough for a lot of guys. If you have any other staff or partners that aren't able to attend here this and be on the live call, we will be recording this and we'll have it posted in your partner portal at federaldirecttax.com for archive access here probably tomorrow morning. Once we get that up, I'll shoot you out an email with a direct link and let you know that it's available. But without further ado, let's dive right in. Here we are. We're now into February, or we're now into December. Gosh, getting ahead of myself. We're now into December, leading up to the January start date for the 2019 filing season. Going to be filing 2019 returns for calendar year 2020. First off, want to re-emphasize, if you guys have not familiarized yourself yet with the Federal Direct Partner Portal, that's where we're going to have access and resources, training videos, practice returns, different IRS forms, publications, workflows, different charts, just all kinds of stuff that can really help you in the running of your office. And that's, regardless of what your office setup is like. If you're working out of your home, there's some different forms and stuff on there that'll help you operate a little bit more efficiently. If you're operating out of an office with multiple preparers, we've got some office admin docs that allows you to kind of keep tabs on returns, keep tabs on preparers, keep your check disbursements tracked. Basically a lot of documents that just kind of allow you to operate more efficiently and with kind of best practices to avoid any type of hangups or problems. So make sure that you've gone through that. That's part of our training process, part of the one-on-one training that we go through with all of our new partners. So if you are brand new to Federal Direct and you have not been through that training process yet, that's something to look forward to, something to definitely pay attention when you're on that part of the portal. Don't just assume that the tax software is the only thing that you need to be focused on. Your portal will provide you with a lot of great tools and training avenues, especially if you have staff that you want to get up to speed, or maybe if you're just now getting your feet wet in tax preparation. There's some really good IRS continuing education. The practice returns on there are fantastic, and they really get your mind and your head in the right area, heading in the right direction, leading in here to the start of the tax season. So you will see access to our conference calls that we're on here now. You'll also see some archive access to the continuing ed that has already been delivered. I'll give you guys a little bit of heads up on what training is coming here in the near future before we wrap up. But before I get into that type of schedule here, I'd like to touch on some hot topics here as we're really approaching the end of the year and closing out 2019, getting ready for the coming season. First thing I want to touch base on really affects all offices out there, and that is your EFINs. In prior years, last year especially, we had an issue with a government shutdown. That caused a lot of heartache when it came to getting access to your eServices account. Right now, there are wonderful folks at the eHelp desk, which is basically the support center for IRS eServices. They're answering the phone, and you can talk to them. You can get help with password resets or access problems. I tell you what, now is the time, if you already have an EFIN from prior years, now is the time that you want to make sure that you are checking that eServices account, making sure that you maintain access to it. You want to take a look in there, make sure that your addresses and contact information and everything are up to date as well. I've had some crazy stories over the years where offices will have their EFINs turned off or deactivated by the IRS because the IRS sent them out a letter and the letter came back undeliverable. And it was perfectly benign. They had moved to a new address but had not updated their information on eServices. And eServices will send out correspondence from time to time, and that is a trigger for them to deactivate the account with a suspicion of fraud if they are not able to physically reach you via mail. So they're not going to pick up the phone and call you to ask you if you've moved. It's your responsibility to log in there and make sure that that information is accurate. As well, if you need to apply for additional EFINs, maybe you're expanding your business this year, opening multiple locations, it's really important that you maintain that access. We do need to have a copy of your summary page showing that your EFIN is in an active status. So if you've been with Federal Direct previously, we probably already have one of those on file. But if you are new to Federal Direct this year, that is a requirement for getting you registered for offering bank products and being able to print checks on site, do the prepaid debit cards, and so on. But eServices is probably the number one thing. Those of you that are brand new to the tax industry and don't have your own EFIN yet, that process generally takes 30 to 45 days. Here we are the 6th of December. So if you have not submitted your fingerprint cards and you have not gone through that EFIN application process, I urge you to do that now. Stay on the call, but maybe when we get done, hopefully that can be pretty high on your priority list immediately following. All right, what you want to look for in there is you want to make sure that you are creating an account, you are able to create an application and then physically submit that application. You will get a tracking number for your application once it is submitted. If you do not get a tracking number and you are trying to apply for a new EFIN number, that means you have not gone through the process in its entirety. So please feel free to give us a call. We'd be happy to help you out with that and do a screen share and make sure that everything's heading in the right direction. Second thing on there, P10s, preparer's tax identification numbers. While an EFIN is only needed by the tax office owner, a P10 is needed for everybody that is going to be preparing tax returns in your office. P10s are still free. However, the IRS did receive authorization or authority from Congress to charge a fee for that. So don't be surprised if this is the last year that those are free. But by all means, log on. IRS.gov up at the top right-hand corner, click on Tax Pros. You either need to renew your existing P10 number for the coming calendar year 2020, or you can apply for a first-time P10 if you're a new tax preparer. There's not a whole lot of requirements. It doesn't have the fingerprint card that goes along with it for background checks and identity verifications, but you do want to make sure you have an active P10 number before you start preparing returns for profit. Also, that's what allows us to report your continuing education credits. And if you are going to be taking the annual filing season program, the AFSP program, so that you can call the IRS on your client's behalf, so that you are listed on the IRS's website as a credentialed preparer, you have to have a P10 number for us to be able to report your activity when it comes to taking continuing education and taking that AFSP program and exam. I've gotten a lot of calls lately on, can I send a return in? Maybe you've got a client that came in that has just now gotten back with you regarding their 2018 tax return, or back years as well that need to be sent. Currently, the IRS e-filing is turned off, so returns cannot be submitted in. You'll get an error in your software, but that is the case across the country. That's just not a software specific or an us specific thing. Regardless of where the person goes, they're not going to be able to file their tax return electronically. Generally, best practices during this period is simply to hold the returns until they turn the system back on. That generally gets turned back on mid-January once they allow current year, that'll be the 2019 tax returns, to come through the system. The IRS policy is that they're going to always accept 3 years of tax returns being accepted electronically. So for this coming January, current year will be 2019, 2018 and 2017 returns will also be able to be submitted electronically. However, anything prior to that, so we're talking about our 2016 returns and back, those are now going to have to be physically printed and put in the mail to get processed at the IRS. So bear that in mind. Currently, we're pretty much at a standstill when it comes to e-filing. You can archive those. You can get your signature pages on the 8879 and sit on them. That holding period does not apply during this time frame when you do not have the ability to send those returns. So hopefully that'll clear up some issues and questions that came along there. I have gotten some questions as far as the start of the filing season. Currently, they have not published that official start date. Last year, the start date was January 29th. The rumor for this year is that it's going to be January 21st. We will be part of the IRS's hub testing program. That means that we get to submit electronic files roughly 5 to 10 days earlier than the published start date that your average guys out there are used to or what they have access to. So you do get a little bit of head start on some of the competition out there when it comes to electronic filing. All right, the 2019 software rollout. Those of you that are on the online software probably have noticed that if you log in, we got some panicked calls as far as, hey, my clients are missing. Where's this guy's return that I did a month ago? Most likely you're logging in and you're logging into the base module of the 2019 software. So the online guys, they have started rolling that out. If you go to your internet favorites and you click on the live software link, it is going to take you to that 2019 program. The 2018 and back programs are certainly still available. It's just you have to go to the appropriate web URL to get into the appropriate year. Part of our installation process for the online guys is to update those shortcuts and favorites that you have. We will be contacting you here probably starting next week to start putting that on the calendar. But if you need access and you're struggling to get into those back years, please just give us a call. We'd be happy to help you out in that process. Now, for those of you that are desktop users, next week is when the desktop software should be able to start being installed in its base form as well. And when I say in its base form or the base modules of the tax software, kind of the way that tax software works is it's approved on a forms by forms and modules by modules basis. So off the top of my head, I don't know how many tax forms there physically are out there, but there's a bunch. And same thing, each state has their own tax forms and schedules. Each bank has their own forms and schedules as well. And as those individual forms and schedules get approved for the electronic filing system, that is when they are added in to the tax software. So the base module is your typical 1040, maybe the very common forms that are out there, your Schedule A's, Schedule C's, but the more esoteric or less common forms that are in the U.S. tax code, maybe the state forms and everything else, those get approved kind of later on as we get later into December and then earlier into January as well. So you'll notice that if you're trying to do a practice return in the 2019 software, you might run into a roadblock or two with some of those forms still being in the approval stages. Now, the next deadline that we do have coming up here is relating to the end of the year. And I mentioned a little bit earlier the AFSP program, or the Annual Filing Season Program. That is a credential that you can earn by taking continuing education and then taking a 100-question open book exam. That exam and the continuing education is available on your Federal Direct Partner portal if you have purchased continuing education packages through us. You do need to complete the AFSP test and the associated 12 continuing education credit hours prior to the end of the year. So you've got plenty of time to knock that out if you haven't done it before. I had a question yesterday that someone was concerned about the exam and asked me, do I think they could actually study and take and pass that before the end of the year? And the answer is absolutely. This is an open book exam. So it is, you will have the study guide. It's a little over 100 pages long, and you have 3 hours to take a 100-question open book test. So the IRS is perfectly fine with you looking up the answers. That's kind of part of the way of that they're intending on you learning the topics. So don't be intimidated by that. You can take it numerous times if you need to pass, and the passing rate is only 70%. So it is not a huge hurdle to overcome, and it certainly is very beneficial. Getting your name listed on the IRS website provides some credibility, especially for those of you guys that maybe don't have a physical brick and mortar presence. Maybe you're operating a mobile office or you're working out of your home office. There's a lot of different variations on the tax preparation business model, but having some credibility out there in an industry where there is a lot of scammers and a lot of concern, a lot of people, looking out for being taken or being scammed. That's an important thing that you need to be aware of. And this is something that if you're trying to gain new clients that maybe don't know you personally, this is something that you can use to help boost that confidence that you're one of the good guys out there and you're on their side. You're there to help them do their taxes legitimately and honestly. As well, another benefit as far as the AFSP is you can also call the IRS regarding questions on tax returns that you have prepared while you're an AFSP preparer. If you do not get the AFSP certification, you have zero call-in rights when it comes to your returns. So bear that in mind. That does afford you some increased representation when it comes to your clients. Next thing I want to talk about is a very popular item, and that is the bank products and advances available this year for your clients. Those advances are going to be starting as early as the first week of January. Those advances are from $500 to $6,000. They are approved in 3 different tiers: 25% of the refund, 50% of the refund, or 75%. You do not get to pick and choose which one of those higher tiers your client is approved for. That is done at the bank level. They run a risk analysis against the return and determine how likely is it that they are going to get their advance paid back and your client's refunds are going to get funded when the IRS processes those returns. We don't have the secret recipe for what that risk assessment is. The bank definitely keeps that fairly close to their vest, but you will find that there does need to be wages on a tax return or some non-self-employment income that is on there so that there is verifiable income. So based off of a W-2 would be the most common. If your clients do not have that, you will find that it's going to throw you up an error. And last year you weren't able to submit those returns for the application for the advance. I assume that's going to be the case again this year as well. I mentioned that these advances can be starting as early as the first week of January. That is the case if you have prior year banking experience and your funding ratios were over 85%. So that basically means that if you filed 8 tax returns out there, you had at least 8.5 of them fund. There's really not a half of a return out there, so you really got to get 9 out of 10 of your clients who actually get their refunds from the IRS. So the IRS didn't keep the money because of back taxes owed. Maybe your clients didn't have, maybe they were had student loan debt. That's a very common one out there. Unpaid child support, those type of things where the financial management services steps in and pulls the money before it is actually dispersed, where the bank is able to get paid back for the advances that they put out. Now, everybody else, those of you that are new to tax preparation and don't have prior year experience, you are able to start offering these same advances right when the hub testing period starts. So again, the IRS has not published what the start dates for the tax season are this next month, but most likely, we're seeing that somewhere around January 21st, and that would then mean that hub testing could start as early as January 11th. So for all intents and purposes, I would kind of say January 15th is the average there of when you would be able to expect to submit these applications in for the first time. The initial applications out there are going to be a cost of marketing fee assessed by the banks on these. The cost to you, the ERO, that's kind of your technical term, the electronic return originator. The preseason, so if you are approved and you meet those criteria where you can offer these starting as early as the first week of January, the fee to you is $75 for doing the advance application. That is only charged if your client is approved. Any applications for an advance that are not approved do not incur that marketing fee. Now, once we get to January 15th-ish, like I was saying, kind of that 15th date is in quote marks here until we have an official published start day. But once we get to the hub testing period that it starts, the marketing cost then drops to $25. So it's considerably cheaper, and there is a good reason for this, and that is because the return is actually able to be acknowledged by the IRS. And what does that mean? That means that the IRS is going to kick back a thumbs up saying your client, there is a person out there with this name and SOCH number. The kids and dependents that are listed on this return have not been claimed anywhere else, and their names and SOCH numbers appear to be accurate. The W-2 wages on here match up with an employer that is out there in the country. There is just some additional verification that is done, and that dramatically increases the chance that the bank is going to get repaid for that advance that they put out there early. So again, early season, or we call that the preseason advance, the marketing fee to you is $75. And for the in-season advance, the fee is $25. We do split those fees with you, so you do not have to shoulder that entire burden for doing those advances. Those will be reconciled as the preparation fees come in, so as your clients' refunds get issued by the IRS. One thing to bear in mind is that we cannot get you registered for offering these type of products, the different bank products, until you have your EIFN number. So those of you out there that are new offices, new to tax preparation, maybe new to just tax preparation or tax office ownership, where you are owning the EIFN, you have to have that before we can get you into the system and be approved for these types of products. As long with having an EIFN number, there are several other must-haves. First off is an unexpired picture ID as well as we need to have your social security number. Traditionally, we get most of this stuff from you through our enrollment process when you first sign up with Federal Direct, but some of you that have been around for many years, maybe the ID that we have on file might be expired or something. We've sent out a few emails regarding that, and also I know that both Tina and Aaliyah have been making some calls to try to get those updated. So don't be surprised if you are a longer term partner with us if we're reaching out asking for an updated ID. One of the other things that we're going to need is a copy of your e-services summary page. So as I mentioned before, one of the most important things that you're going to do right around when we hang up the call here is you're going to make sure that you still have access to your IRS e-services account. The e-services summary page is a needed item. If you're a returning office, we most likely have that in your file from a prior season. But again, if you are new and you are just now getting your EFIN issued and approved by the IRS, that is the official statement or piece of paper that shows that you are active, that shows that they have done the background check on you, and that you are now approved to operate and submit returns through the IRS's electronic system. I suggest using the compliance document uploader on the Federal Direct Partner Portal to upload any picture IDs or EFIN summary pages. It is certainly best practices to get into the habit of not emailing personally sensitive information. That is definitely a best practice, and now that we are in the kind of most targeted industry out there when it comes to hackers, cyber thieves, etc., it is definitely good to get into that mindset. We will be hosting a bank product webinar here around the last week of December. Once the bank forms become available, we'll do a walkthrough on those and a detailing of the products. Depending on when those become available, we might host 2 of these webinars to kind of give you guys multiple chances to get into that. If you have any questions on bank products, don't hesitate, give us a call. We will go through those if you are new to Federal Direct in the partner training to really get you up to speed on what those are and what you can offer and what you can kind of expect. But the basis of bank products, for those of you that don't know, is they give you the ability to have your preparation fees withheld from your client's refund so they do not have to pay you your prep fees up front. Great service. Comes at a cost to your client. It gives you the ability to print your client refund checks at your office or have it direct deposited into their own previous checking or savings account. As well, you will also have prepaid debit cards that you can issue out to these clients real time in your office. So stand by for the scheduling of that. But like I said, we're hoping to have that roughly the last week of December. Marketing programs are one of the last topics I want to touch on. We have hosted a couple of different marketing webinars here over the past couple months as we're leading up until this kind of ramp up for the season. Those are available in your portal if you were not on those live webinars previously. But we have several programs that you do still have time to get in on. If you have not set up your advertising and marketing campaigns, we have a direct mail campaign through the USPS that allows you to target specific mail routes in your area. Usually that means, the specific mail routes closest to your tax office. But that's a great program, very affordable. They have another one that's a recent mover program that gets you a list and mailing list for anyone who has changed their address over the past year. So that lets you target any new folks that have moved into your area. And then last but not least, and one of the more costlier programs that's out there that's kind of a turnkey is we have the ability to advertise at both the Family Dollar and Dollar Generals on the back of their register receipts. We've got some cost details on there. If you have interest and are looking at setting up a marketing campaign, and you have a budget that I would say is probably $500 or greater, those are some great options. And I urge you to give us a call. Tina Harvey here is the person that you want to talk to. She spearheads those campaigns. It can really get you started, get the ball rolling as far as picking those areas, picking those routes, and taking a look at some of the postcard templates that are available. Before we sign off, I want to mention that there are some upcoming trainings that are available. Next Thursday, I was talking about how you need to be on a security-minded footing when it comes to really all of your business operations. The tax industry is such a target when it comes to these hackers and spammers and phishing emails trying to get passwords and usernames. We are hosting a data security for your tax office webinar next Thursday. That would be a really good one if you are kind of maybe a technology novice and aren't really familiar with the different security protocols and best practices that are out there. We'll go over some of those, how some things that you can implement that are even completely free of cost, just a best practice when it comes to managing the sensitive information and data that you have really at your fingertips being a tax office owner. Just yesterday, we hosted a due diligence webinar. That is posted up in the Federal Direct Partner Portal, and you can certainly jump in there and view that for archive access now. Due diligence in layman's terms is simply the smell test. How do you deal with issues and clients that don't necessarily smell bad, but something smells fishy about their scenario? One of the standard examples I give is, you've got a 18-year-old single parent in your office that you're filing their tax return, and you take a look and they've got 2 kids there. One of them is 2 years old and the other one is 10. Well, you do the quick math there, and if they're only maybe 18 years old, your taxpayer, it's like, gosh, how do you have a 10-year-old child? And the due diligence mantra, or the basic of that, is that you need to identify those odd scenarios that don't necessarily make perfect sense. You need to ask questions about them, and you not only need to ask them, you need to document those questions in the client file. So if you have a lot of those scenarios coming through your office, perhaps the IRS might raise an eyebrow and say, hey, I'd like to take a look at these returns and maybe see some of your due diligence questions that you asked. And hopefully you have access to those and you come out smelling like a rose. You're doing your job. I was talking to somebody earlier today about, you're not the honesty police. Not many tax offices out there have a lie detector machine sitting over in the corner. So we are at the mercy of what our clients tell us. But you can't just put the blinders on and say, oh, well, that's what they told me. They told me that they had a 10-year-old kid. Why should I think they're lying? Well, you have to be able to operate with a reasonable sense of professional concern and, again, due diligence. So I noticed that probably having a child when they're 8 years old wasn't a realistic scenario. So I asked them a question about it. Taxpayer indicated that that child was actually an adopted child from their previous marriage, that maybe that child was born, from the other parent. They have now adopted them. There's all kinds of possible and plausible scenarios that make that a legitimate dependent, but you need to ask those type of questions. And so I've gone on a lot about due diligence, but honestly, that should be the CYA type of webinar. That's covering your butt in the event that the IRS comes in to audit your office. You need to be able to say, yes, I operate with due diligence. I recognize odd scenarios. I ask my clients questions about them. And if they give me the bad answers where they say, oh, that kid's actually my neighbor's kid, but he's not claiming them on their return, so I'm going to do it on mine. Well, if that's the case, you need to say, no, that's not a dependent for you, that they do not get to go on your tax return. And if they insist, that's one of them that you need to turn away. So But take a look, a lot of different archive webinars and trainings in there. As I mentioned, we do have the December 31st deadline coming up for the AFSP credentials to get that into the IRS to be valid for the coming 2020 tax season. As well, we've got some software training videos on there, software walkthroughs. Once more of the forms become available in the 2019 software, you will see those getting updated for the coming year's software. But I urge you to take a look now. There really isn't a whole lot of change going on when it comes to the tax forms this year. Those of you that were preparing taxes last year, there was monumental changes out there. The 1040 was different. We had new schedules that we'd never seen before. There was all kinds of stuff. This year is considerably more tame when it comes to the changes that are in place. It's not like we're really reinventing the wheel. Navigation is the same. The workflow is the same. So I encourage you to take a look at that. Don't feel like you need to wait for the 2019 forms to come out. Practice returns are in there as well. Those are also still referencing 2018 return figures. Same thing as I was saying before. The workflow is identical. It's the tax law calculation behind the scenes that is going to change. So don't delay on those. If you haven't jumped into practice returns and you're a new preparer, new to the software, I really urge you to take a look on there. We have set up the next conference, all office conference call coming up for December the 20th, which is the Friday just before Christmas. We should have some more information regarding potentially the start date of the tax season. We'll have some more information regarding bank products. I'll get into that in a little more detail. And really just kind of some more pressing items as we get a little bit closer to the start of the season. But otherwise, guys, I really appreciate you taking 30 minutes out of your Friday here and giving me a little bit of time. Starting to get excited. We've already had our first snowfall here in Indiana, so that's usually when we kind of get our tax hats on and really start getting focused on preparing for the coming filing season. So if you guys have any points, any questions that maybe I didn't get to cover or something that's specific to your tax office, I want you to know that we are here to answer those questions. Give us a call. Don't be shy. Now is the best time to address these as opposed to in the middle of the tax season. So again, the number here is 866-357-2052. Give us a call. We'd be happy to talk with you and see if we can't clear that up. But otherwise, you guys have a great weekend, and I look forward to getting back together with everybody here on the 20th. Thanks a lot, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.